Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So this is part 8 of my video lecture on immunity from jurisdiction. So in part 7, I was discussing about duration of immunity, Article 39, Clause 2. The second part, this is exception. Although when a diplomat his functions come to an end and then he went back to his country, he is no longer entitled to immunity. But the exception is whatever he did when he was a diplomatic agent, whatever he did in his official capacity, the immunity shall continue to subsist. Okay. Even though he becomes now former diplomat, what he did in the past while he was a diplomatic agent, in his official capacity as diplomatic agent, still he is entitled to immunity. This is we can refer back to the state immunity, official immunity regarding the official acts. Even a former head of state also, when he committed while he was the head of state, even though he becomes the former, for official acts, still he is entitled to immunity. So also a diplomatic agent, for official acts, his immunity still subsists. So the next slide explains it very clearly. So in respect of private acts, immunity is contingent only, temporary only. It ceases when diplomat leaves his post. He leaves to his country. But in the case of official acts, the immunity is permanent. The immunity is permanent because the immunity is the immunity of the standing state, not his own personal immunity. It's immunity of standing state. For official acts, he will ever be immune from jurisdiction. It is permanent. This is the meaning of Article 39, Clause 2, second paragraph, second exceptional situation. Okay, now let us move on to Article 41. Duties of diplomats and diplomatic missions. And then second part is how to address abuse of immunity. So Article 41, Clause 1, without prejudice to their privileges and immunities. That's why we have to always take care of the privileges and immunities. Although there is a duty for all diplomats to respect the laws and regulations of the receiving state. And they have the duty not to interfere in the internal affairs of a state. Because this is some students misunderstand this. And then they say that if they violate the laws, can be taken action. No, cannot be taken action. That's why I put it highlighted in red color, without prejudice to their privileges and immunities. It is the duty of the diplomats to respect the laws and regulations of the receiving state. It means that if they violate, what can we do? We cannot do anything. But Article 41 says they have to respect. Like other citizens of the country, the diplomats also have to respect the laws and regulations of the receiving state. But it happened to be that one of the diplomats violated the laws. What can we do? We cannot do because he is entitled to privileges and immunity. So also, they have no duty to interfere in the internal affairs of the state, of the receiving state. No duty to interfere. This is a duty, yes, he has a duty, but if he interferes, what will happen? We cannot take legal action. But there are other means. That's why we talk about second part is to address abuse of immunity. This is abuse of immunity. Although we cannot take direct action against this diplomat, there are some ways and means how to address the abuse of immunity. And the third paragraph also, the premises of the mission must not be used in any manner incompatible with the functions of the mission. So all these wild down to this without prejudice to their privileges and immunities. They have to respect local laws. They must not interfere with the domestic affairs, internal affairs. So the premises must not be used for other purposes, or unlawful purposes. But if diplomat committed all these things, they are protected by the immunity, privilege and immunities. Then we have to look for some other ways and means to address this type of abuse of immunity. So that's why the most important thing when you answer the question, a question on the immunity, diplomatic immunity, this part is very important. This is for you to suggest. So there are victims of this criminal acts or civil acts committed by diplomats, that how to address the abuse and how to give suggestions to the victims to get their redress or their remedy. This is the very important part. And those who can answer this can get very good marks in answering diplomatic immunity part of the question. So there are two possible ways to deal with cases of abuse. Number one, to request the sending state to waive the waiver of immunity. I have already discussed this earlier. Waiver of immunity is very important. So that's why the receiving state can request the sending state to waive the immunity of the diplomat. Then if they waive the immunity, then he is no longer protected by immunity. Number two, to declare the diplomat persona non grata. This is also a very effective remedy. To declare the diplomat persona non grata is Article 9. So I will discuss these two methods in detail. Now, the first one is request for waiver of immunity referring to Article 32. I have already discussed this one. If the sending state waive the immunity of its diplomat, the diplomat would no longer be protected by immunity. And thus the authorities of the receiving state could proceed with any legal action that was available. Any legal action here means he is no longer a diplomat. That's why he is not entitled to inviolability. His person is not inviolable, and then that's why he can be arrested, he can be detained by the authorities of the receiving state. The police can arrest him, the police can detain him, and can bring him to court for trial purposes. Because he is also not entitled to immunity from civil, immunity from criminal jurisdiction. This is a very effective way of addressing abuse of immunity. And waiver of immunity is routinely sought and occasionally granted. Normally, the receiving state normally requests for waiver of immunity and is occasionally granted. And there are many incidents that the sending state waived the immunity of its own diplomat. A good example is Zambia speedily waived the immunity of an official at its London embassy who was suspected of drugs offences in 1985. This is one good example. There are many instances where the immunity was waived by the sending state. Now, the second way of addressing the abuse of immunity is Article 9, declaring persona non grata. The receiving state may, at any time and without having to explain its decision. This is the right, the discretionary power of the receiving state. That's why they can use this power at any time and without having to explain its decision, without any reason given. Notify the sending state that the head of the mission or other members of the mission is persona non grata. Persona non grata means is a not acceptable person. We cannot accept this person anymore in our country. So this is the meaning of persona non grata, not acceptable person. In any such case, the sending state shall, I put it in red color, highlight in red color, shall. It is compulsory, it is obligatory for the sending state to either recall the person concerned. This is called recall, the duty to recall the person concerned. So the sending state recall the diplomat concerned or terminate his function with the mission. The sending state can terminate, either recall or terminate his function. So he is no longer a diplomatic agent. Paragraph 2 is an exception. Exception means the continuation of the number 1. If the sending state refuses or fails, sometimes the sending state has that problem, a bit problematic. They do not want to waive the immunity, they do not recall the person, want to recall or terminate the function. Refuses or fails within a reasonable period. So some grace period has to be given to carry out its obligations. Under paragraph 1, the receiving state may refuse to recognize the person concerned as a member of the mission. Now, the receiving state has the right to refuse to recognize the person as a diplomat and then strike out from the diplomatic list. You remember in the foreign ministry, there is a diplomatic list submitted by the embassy. So the foreign ministry of the receiving state will strike out that person from the diplomatic list and then say that we no longer recognize this person as a diplomatic agent. And he's no longer entitled to immunity, and then he can be taken action, he can be arrested or something like that. So this is the essence of Article 9, persona non grata. So this is also a very effective way of addressing abuse of diplomatic immunity. Okay, thank you very much. This is the end of the topic on immunity from jurisdiction. We have two parts, state immunity and diplomatic immunity, and this both are appropriate for the protect questions. And these, for example, we have a state territory, we have state jurisdiction, now immunity from jurisdiction. All these are normally we test the student with prototype questions. So you have to be well prepared for prototype questions. Read carefully. Okay, read carefully to understand the essence. If you listen or you watch the video once is not enough, then second time, third time you watch again and again the video so that you understand the essence of the principles of law in these topics. And then inshallah, so this is also the end of the course, my course on Law 3912, Introduction to Public International Law. So all my lectures are completed now. So all my lectures are completed for this subject, Law 3912. That's why when the semester again resumes in June, so there will be no more formal lectures. So, but as I have given to you my schedule of the synchronized classes, the schedule of synchronized classes, and you print out that one and then read carefully when will be the classes. So normally, even though we have lectures and tutorial period, we have to, all classes will be there. All the lecture classes, tutorial classes will be there. But since the time is short, so we have to take tutorials in lecture periods also. We have to take tutorials in many of the lecture periods. That's why in lecture time also, I arrange for tutorials, tutorial presentations. Presentations are very important for you, for your coursework marks. So only when there is no presentation, no tutorial present, then only we will use that lecture period as what you call the class discussion and for your consultation. That's why in class discussion and consultation, I put it like that. Then this is for all of the students. You can attend and then you can ask questions and I will discuss with you about, I will ask questions to you, something like that, like class discussions and your consultation time. So many of the lecture periods will be tutorial presentations. So that's why after now I've completed my lectures and you prepare for your tutorial assignments for written paper as well as oral presentations. And when the semester officially commences, then we will start the presentation, tutorial, written submission, written assignments, and oral presentation. Even in the lecture period, we are using as oral presentation. Okay, inshallah, thank you. We will be okay to complete this all the coursework mark 60, and then after that we will have final exam, final assessment for 40 marks. So I will pray for all of you, and all of you will get very good marks and will complete all the courses, inshallah, even though now we are mainly on online based ERTL, based on ERTL guidelines. Thank you very much. Wabillahi taufiq wa hidayah. Wassalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.